Today we're honored to welcome Loren Lockman to the show today. Very excited to have him on. He talks about the topic of fasting, right? Now, fasting is such an important tool we can use in our overall health and wellness. And ultimately, it's been used since the dawn of time, really. We've always used this tool, but we've kind of lost it in a sense. And kind of learning about this and how to implement it in our own lives can be very valuable and definitely optimize our own wellness. He has helped so many people through this process, and his amazing story I'm excited to get into. So how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, thanks, Anthony. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah, so very excited and very curious to hear your story on how you got into fasting and health and wellness and how you're being of service today.
Sure. Well, I graduated with a degree in finance and was working in commercial real estate finance in Washington, D.C. But I got very sick at 23, and I got much worse with 3 years of medical care. And maybe that doesn't surprise you. I suspect you're already awake to the fact that medicine is largely about suppressing symptoms, and that toxic substances, i.e. all medications, can't heal you. They don't make anybody healthier. They just make them feel better. And so I was getting sicker and sicker. I finally woke up at 26, walked away from medicine, and have literally never looked back. I turned 65 last weekend. I haven't been sick a day since I was 26. I've now helped more than 16,000 people take their health to amazing levels, primarily through fasting, but also other lifestyle choices. You know, fasting is like a giant reset. And once we do the reset, it's important that we make the best choices going forward so that we can maintain the highest levels of health and vitality.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's like, so if we do that, like go along that journey, then we want to not just do the fast, but actually cultivate a new lifestyle to actually create long-lasting change. So it's an important point there too.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, diets don't work. What works is finding ways to live, and it's not just what we eat. What we eat is hugely important, but it's also about how much sleep we're getting and how much activity and exercise we're getting, whether we're getting enough sunshine or not. All of these things come into supporting our body. You know, I truly believe that, like every other species on the planet, there's more than 25 million animal species in nature, and they all function at an incredibly high level of health and vitality. Humans are meant to do the same thing. We don't, on average. Humans are by far the least healthy species on the planet. Second least healthy species are dogs. Third is cats. And fourth through 100 are all the other species that animals have taken, quote, dominion over, feed and have moved away from their natural environments. So I reasoned at 26 when I'm trying to find my way back to health, what I needed to do was figure out what was natural for my body. Fasting is completely natural, as you said, practiced since the dawn of time. Literally every species on the planet, or virtually every species, when sick enough or badly enough injured, will instinctively lay down and stop eating. Because processing takes so much food, processing food through the body takes so much energy, the body can't do these energy expensive restorative processes of cleansing and healing and growth and repair when we're eating. And so every other species instinctively stops eating. As you said, we've lost it. It's been lost to our culture almost completely.
100%. How can fasting act as a reset for people?
Well, I think the foundational piece that most people don't understand is that both healing and detoxification, which are incredibly important, both of these are biological processes. I'll share a quick story with you. Years ago, I was giving a full-day seminar in Belfast, Ireland, and I said to the group, there's only one thing on this planet that can heal your body. And a hopeful voice from the back of the room said, "You?" And I said, "No, it's not me. It's your body. Only your body can heal your body. It's a biological process, so only the organism can heal itself." What fasting does, and in a way that nothing else can, is it allows us to get out of the body's way by resting as completely as possible and not consuming anything, because processing food takes so much energy. By resting completely, including not eating anything, the body is able to put as much energy as possible into cleansing and healing. And so we see amazing things happening.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because once we start to kind of cultivate the energy in another direction, that's when we start to actually see healing, as you mentioned, because we're so caught up in digestion and so many different other processes that we don't necessarily have a lot of time or energy to do the main things that are required for healing in our bodies.
Exactly.
Right? So you just got to give that stuff a break and time to rest.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And there's a process called autophagy. Is that right? Is that basically like cellular cleanup? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. So autophagy comes from the Greek auto, self, phagy, eat. And autophagy is the process of the body eliminating the garbage tissue, unhealthy tissue. In fact, the 2016 Nobel Prize for Medicine went to a Japanese PhD named Yoshinori Osumi for his decade or so of work proving that autophagy happens most efficiently and most effectively, as they say in science, in starvation. In other words, when we're fasting. Okay, when we stop having to, forcing the body to do all the work of processing food, we see much, much more efficient and effective elimination of garbage tissue. And so the healing that occurs is amazing. Literally things that most people would have trouble believing.
Yeah.
Now, I should perhaps say, there's a lot of talk about fasting these days. And I think you have some experience with fasting yourself. But when most people think about fasting, they're talking about intermittent fasting. They're talking about going 16 hours without food. And some people 12 hours without food. This is beneficial, and I believe we don't want to be asking the body to have to process food all day long. So I eat 1 or 2 meals a day for the last 34 years, and I eat normally within a 4-hour window, sometimes 5. So my body has most of the day where it's not having to deal with food. But when my clients come to me, we're not talking about fasting for 16 hours or 20 hours. My average client fast is 26 days. Wow. And I know this is mind-blowing for most people, right? Most people, a lot of people I think listening may be thinking, shit, if I skip lunch, I might die. The truth is that the average human body could go 6 to 8 weeks without a meal if we knew what we were doing and be perfectly fine. And I've actually guided more than 1,000 people through fasts of 40 days or longer, with the longest one being 4.5 months. Now, that was a guy who was morbidly obese. Neither you nor I would survive 4.5 months without food. But if someone is, as I like to say, wealthy in nutrient reserves, they can go a long time. We store fat so that we can survive in the absence of food.
Yeah. A lot of us don't have access to it, right? Because we're constantly eating, so we don't actually give ourselves like an opportunity to do what the body wants to do in a sense.
Well, that's right. Exactly. I mean, first of all, as you know, today the majority of adults are overweight or obese. So obviously people are consuming far more than they need to, and they're consuming things that never belonged in a living organism. The average person today in North America gets nearly 65% of their calories from ultra-processed foods. This is disease. This is how we create disease, is eating this garbage. But it's when we fast, the body is able to undo a lot of the damage. And it's important to point out, I can't say everybody can heal everything, because sometimes we've done so much damage, it may be too late for the body to be able to reverse it. The body may not have enough energy to do that. But generally speaking, our bodies, as I said, are meant to function at an incredibly high level of health and vitality. And so I've helped hundreds of people heal from cancer. I've helped more than 1,500 hypertensive clients heal, and 100% of them dramatically reduce their blood pressure. I work with a gentleman who's actually I can tell you the exact day. It was February 10th. I got an email from a client of mine in California. And she said, Loren, can you please call me? I'm at the hospital with a dear friend. I want him to speak to you. And so I gave her a call, and she puts her friend on, and he was hospitalized for heart failure. Congestive heart failure, which doesn't mean the heart stops. It means that it's no longer capable of doing its job. So it's falling behind, and the body becomes filled with edema. His blood pressure was super high. He looked like he was about to die. And 2 different people told me that he looked like he was, this is about the end. So he was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. having trouble breathing, etc. His blood pressure that day was 254 over 130. Now, you may know that normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. You may not know that normal just means average, not healthy. No one's blood pressure should be 120, and if it is 120, the diastolic pressure shouldn't be 80, it should be 70. But because everyone's dehydrated, they have less blood, that pulse pressure, the difference between those two numbers is smaller than it should be. So his was 254 over 130, and he made the mistake. It was interesting. I normally tell people, don't tell anyone what you're planning to do, because most people don't understand it. You're just going to get a lot of negative energy directed at you. Everyone's going to think you're in danger. He told the doctors at the hospital that he was going to go home and do this, and they all tried to convince him it was a terrible idea. He would die. His body couldn't handle this. He checked himself out of the hospital that night. She drove him home. I require certain measurements, so they stopped at a pharmacy and picked up some devices that he needed: blood pressure monitor, pulse oximeter, thermometer, things like that. And he began his process with me the next day. He fasted for 30 days. And again, to be absolutely clear for anybody listening, this is water-only fasting. So we're not talking about juices. There's no supplements. There's no medications, just water. We're not putting electrolytes in the water. We're not using salt. If you do any of those things, you're not actually fasting. Now, I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with me. However, I've guided more people through therapeutic fast than anybody alive today. And I can tell you from experience that if you add any of those things in, you don't get the same results, because your body thinks there's food coming. If it sees salt or it sees electrolytes, you add potassium or whatever to the water, your body thinks that there's food coming, and it takes you out of fasting physiology. So he went home. He fasted for 30 days. His blood pressure at the end was 121 over 79 from 254 over 130. He eliminated more than 10 liters of edema. His heart was working properly again. Medicine says that's not possible, but I see it happening all the time.
Yeah. Like a lot of times we see things that are just like, we can't heal that. But the reality is we're designed to heal. Like our bodies want to heal. And as you mentioned, we just need to get out of the way oftentimes.
Absolutely. The body is meant to heal and can heal almost anything. Now, again, sometimes it goes too far. Sometimes it's too late. I work with people sometimes who've been told they've got 2 or 3 weeks to live, often with cancer. In some cases, those people don't survive. It's just too late for their body to be able to recover from that. Right? There's been so much damage, and it's already so weak, dehydrated and toxic. It's no longer capable of fully recovering. But many people do recover. So, and we see the same thing with almost every condition. Type 2 diabetes. Medicine says you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. I've had 100% success with more than 150 type 2 diabetics. Every single person gets their blood sugar into a healthy range and doesn't need medication anymore. Every single person. We see amazing results with arthritis, with lower GI tract problems. There are very few things the body can't heal, and sometimes it's shocking what happens. Let me give you a simple example. And again, this is probably going to blow some people's minds. But I was talking to a 40-year-old woman who was planning to fast with me, and she said to me, my son has an inguinal hernia. Now, if you're not familiar, or anybody listening not familiar with what that means, you've probably heard the term hernia, and usually that's in the groin. But there are several different types of hernias. You can have a hiatal hernia, which happens in the throat, where the stomach actually comes up into the throat, or an abdominal hernia, where you're getting something pushing through the abdominal wall. But an inguinal hernia is in the groin. When people say hernia, that's usually the one they're talking about. He was 11 years old, and she said to me, would it help with a hernia? I said, it's helped every client so far. So the mom and her 11-year-old son fasted together with me for 21 days. Okay, 11 years old. By the end, the hernia was gone. But on about day 10, Mom said to me, when he was 3 or 4 years old, he got frostbite on his cheek. They live in Canada, where it gets pretty cold. Actually, you're in Michigan, it's not that different. He got frostbite on his cheek, and he's had this patch of what looked like dead skin on his cheek for 7 or 8 years. She said, we woke up this morning and it was gone, healed. He also had a varicose vein. He had a prominent vein that stuck out under one of his eyes. Disappeared. Gone. It had been there for a decade, gone. Okay, so it's amazing what the body will heal when we give it a chance.
Yeah, we start to heal things that we don't even realize we have too, right?
Well, exactly. That's often the case with guys. Women are usually much better at being in touch with what's going on in their bodies. Usually, not always. I can give you some crazy examples when they're not in touch at all. But men will often, they'll go through the process and they'll say, how you doing every day? How you doing today? Doing fine. Anything different? No, not really. And at the end, oh yeah, by the way, when I got here, when I started this, I couldn't see out of one eye. Now I can see perfectly. Things, crazy things, right? And again, that sounds ridiculous, over the top. I had a client who, when I met her, was legally blind. She could see light and shadow. She couldn't distinguish objects, one from the other. She fasted with me. She changed her diet. She did some exercises called the Bates exercises to reduce the stress, the tension in her eyes. And the last time I saw her, she was driving a car without glasses. Now, she hit a lot of things. No, she didn't. No, she went from being legally blind to 20/20 uncorrected vision. And it was such a powerful thing. She actually opened a center for African Americans in Virginia Beach. She had a house, big house on some property, and she opened a center for other African Americans with vision problems. Brought me in twice to teach full-day seminars there. And I wound up fasting 2 small groups of blind people, each of whom saw amazing shifts. Now, none of them recovered to the same extent that she did, but they all saw dramatic improvements in their vision. I've also worked with a lot of deaf people. If you're born congenitally deaf, usually what happens is the 3 little bones in the ear that transmit sound waves to the brain, they don't touch, and so they're never going to hear without some device. But I've worked with people who had lost their hearing. I had a client who was in his early 40s. He was the lead guitarist for a rock and roll band from Melbourne, Australia, and their claim to fame was that they were the loudest rock and roll band in their city. The loudest, right? He'd been playing on stage with them for more than 20 years, and he lost 70% of his hearing. He fasted with me for 42 days and regained 100% of his hearing.
Wow. Yeah.
So, so again, you asked me before we went on, is there a message? Well, I think the message I want to, the underlying message I want everyone to walk away from this conversation with, is that our amazing bodies are intended to function at an incredibly high level of health and vitality. It's amazing what we can accomplish, even when there's already things to recover from. Again, I was pretty sick, 23 to 26 years of age, and now haven't been sick a single day, not a single day, in over 39 years. Okay, it's I've got 3 siblings, 3 sisters I grew up with. They all wear glasses. In fact, I have 3 more half siblings my father had. They all wear glasses. My vision's better than 20/20. My mother had terrible arthritis. All of my siblings from the same mother, the three other siblings, they all have arthritis issues. We're all in our 60s. They all have arthritis. Not me. My joints actually work better today than they did when I was 18 years of age. Literally. Yeah. So, I think people should understand that if you're listening and you're not feeling and functioning as well as you'd like to, you can change that. Now, it's important to point out that fasting is an extremely powerful process. And power sometimes isn't so well understood. You have a car, I'm guessing, Anthony. Yeah, it's probably powerful.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
I'll say it's good.
I would suggest it depends what you do with it.
Oh.
If there's a bus stop full of children and you use it, you've moved in that direction, not so good. That power is not beneficial. Okay, power depends on how you apply it. Power is neutral. So if you apply it properly, it's beneficial, and if you apply it not so well, then it could be actually quite harmful. Fasting is a very powerful thing, and so it has to be done correctly. And we were talking earlier about how it's lost to our culture, and so fasting is something, in order to see these amazing shifts in health, there needs to be experienced guidance, because otherwise you wind up making mistakes. I have a client who fasted with me about 5 or 6 years ago. He was around 21 at the time. He was in law school, but he was fatigued and depressed and having issues. And he was a competitive tennis player, but his game wasn't very good. He just wasn't motivated. And he fasted with me for 21 days, and it completely changed his life. He went from being depressed and fatigued to having tons of energy and feeling very positive. His tennis game became better than ever. And it was an amazing thing for him. He came back to me a year later and said, I want to do this again. And I said, okay, great. And then he said, I don't agree with you about how much water we need. So I figured out more than 25 years ago how to interpret vital signs in a way that helps us see whether someone's drinking enough water or not. We're looking at blood volume. This is something they do not teach doctors or nurses or any other health professional. I've now taught this to roughly 36 doctors and probably 100 nurses, and they all say the same thing. That's amazing. It makes perfect sense. But they didn't learn this before. And so I know how much water someone needs to be drinking each day by looking at their numbers. We can see how they're doing. So he said, I'm just going to drink when I'm thirsty. I hope that's okay. I said, no. If you're not going to take coaching, I can't work with you. You need to be coachable. And so he fasted on his own. He wound up in the hospital for 4 months with 2% kidney function. He almost killed himself because he wasn't drinking enough water. And when you're dehydrated, you're damaging your kidneys. In fact, you may have heard of dry fasting. It's been a fad over the last 10 years. And the people who practice it think it's the best thing in the world because they feel better. Heroin makes you feel better too. Doesn't mean it's good for you. Symptoms are evidence that the body's cleansing or healing. When you make yourself dehydrated, your body can't detoxify. And what I mean is, we have 5 primary channels that we detoxify through. Right? The urinary tract, which is the number one, where your 2 kidneys are filtering your blood 60 times every day. And doesn't happen very efficiently if you're dehydrated. If your blood volume is low, your body can't make enough urine to efficiently detoxify. And it becomes more abrasive and you damage your kidneys. You're damaging your kidneys from the inside anyway if there's not enough water to support them. And so far, 6 people that I knew are dead from dry fasting. And there have been dozens of people who have died over the last few years from dry fasting. The crazy thing is, when they come to me, at some point, some of these folks realize that they're not getting what they wanted from it. And so they come to me. They're always we've been measuring hydration levels. For 29 years, I ran the world's largest bricks and mortar water-only fasting center. We were in Costa Rica, and I guided about 10,000 people through fasts in person over the years. I don't run the center anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. I work with people remotely, and my clients, I've worked with people from 156 countries. But we started measuring on site, and now I have people doing this at home with a device you can buy. More than 8,000, close to 9,000 people we've measured their hydration. Everyone's dehydrated. Every single person. And the reason why is simple. You've probably eaten corn chips in your life.
Distant.
Even once. Yeah, but you haven't.
Distant past.
Yeah. How much water would you guess is in corn chips?
Probably nothing.
It's a good guess. It's not exactly right. They're actually about 3% water. And if that sounds like a lot, consider that white bread is 50% water. 3% is pretty low. Okay? Now here's the operative question. When those corn chips leave your body again, are they as dry as when they went in?
No.
You better hope not. Could you imagine if they were? That'd be pretty uncomfortable. Okay? So they go in almost completely dry. And stool is 75% water, so they're coming out quite wet. Where's the water coming from? It's coming from your body. We're actually meant in the transverse colon, which is the part of the large intestine that crosses your body, right around your belly button height, comes right across. In the transverse colon, we're meant to absorb the water from our food because every species on the planet eats a high water content diet. Every single species. I mean, think of this. The carnivore, all carnivores, a wolf will typically, let's say, catch a deer, bite through the neck. Why? Well, in our case, brain is about 3% of the human body's weight. It varies, 2%. Varies a little bit depending on size, obviously. Brain weighs about 3 pounds. So if you're 150 pounds, it's 2% of your body weight, right? If you're more, it's a little bit less. If you're less, it's a little bit more, but roughly 2%. But it gets 35% of the blood supply. So there's a lot of blood moving through the carotid arteries and the vein bringing back the blood to your heart. And so what carnivores do is they bite through the neck, the jugular vein, the carotid arteries. They drink all the blood. As the animal's bleeding out, they drink all the blood. Then they tear it open and eat the water-rich internal organs. Then they eat the muscle, the meat, without cooking it first and putting it between two dry pieces of bread. They're eating the animal, which is 75 to 80% water. Okay, so they're getting a high water content diet. All plant eaters in nature are eating high water content substances. Whether it's roots or shoots or leaves or fruits, it's all high in water. Only humans are consuming these processed, cooked, and dehydrated foods that are very low in water. That dehydrates the body. And in fact, anything we've ever eaten that's not high enough in water, a little tiny bit of it gets stuck. You know, if you think about meat, for instance, carnivores and omnivores, the meat eaters in nature, have short, smooth, straight digestive tracts. So a 500-pound tiger has a digestive tract that's 12 feet long from mouth to anus. Okay, what do you weigh roughly?
I'd say like 150, 160.
Okay, so that tiger is just more than 3 times your size, but your digestive tract is 2.5 times longer. Okay, proportionally, your digestive tract is like 7.5, 8 times longer than its is. Proportional to body size. Okay, meat eaters, meat contains 0 fiber. They need a very short digestive tract so they can get rid of it without it sitting in their body rotting. We have very long digestive tracts. From the bottom of your stomach to the ileocecal valve, you're what, 5'10", 6 foot tall?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So I'm 6 foot. So from the bottom of my stomach to the ileocecal valve, where the small intestine ends, the large intestine begins. In other words, the entire small intestine is found in a distance on my torso, relatively long torso, of about 12 inches. There's about 22 feet of small intestine in there. And it's 1/3 the diameter of the large intestine, and it's sacculated like a vacuum cleaner hose. And that's to increase surface area. If we were to cut the small intestine, you know, it's a tube, right? 1/2-inch tube. We were to cut it in half, open it up, and then look at the length. We'd have roughly, if I remember the math correctly, it's about 5 square feet of area. It may even be a little bit less than that. Roughly the size of a bath mat. Okay? But if we look at the actual surface area, with the sacculations, which are there to increase surface area so that we can maximize nutrient absorption, right? When we look at the actual surface area with the sacculations, it would roughly cover a tennis court. From a bath mat to a tennis court, that's a pretty big difference. Okay? So these sacculations, anything that, if there's not enough fiber and there's not enough water, a little tiny piece, imagine a breadcrumb-sized piece getting stuck. By the time the average person is 25, with the number of meals the average person eats, there would be about 11 pounds of waste stuck in the body. By the time someone's 50, about 22 pounds of waste. I have a client who's now 30, I'll see her on Saturday. Well, I'm in Seattle right now, and she lives here, and we've been hiking together every week with a small group of people. She fasted with me a couple of years ago, remotely, and she fasted for 30 days. And I should tell you, she's 5'4". She's very petite. When she started the fast, she weighed 99 pounds at 5'4". She completed the fast 30 days later, and she was 76 pounds. And in the 33 days that followed, she had 318 bowel movements. And we counted them every single day. She counted and put them on a form, which, again, which I use to track how everyone's doing. Okay, 318, nearly 10 a day. She had nearly 10 bowel movements a day on average for more than 6 months. So I get to say something to people. One of the reasons I love what I do, I can say something to you that most people couldn't say and get away with. Anthony, you're full of shit. Everybody is. If you grew up eating processed food, there's a bunch of stuff in there that doesn't belong. Now, there's some people who don't believe it exists because they've never done this process correctly. Every client of mine eliminates pounds and pounds of old, hard, dry material, and the difference it makes is incredible. You can't get, first of all, I would suggest, so we actually look at 30 metrics every day when I'm guiding someone through the process, including blood pressure, pulse, and then with blood pressure, I mentioned what medicine calls the pulse pressure. I call that the spread. It's one syllable instead of three. So we look at their spread, the ideal spread at that number, what the difference is, what that is as a percentage, pulse, temperature, blood oxygen saturation, blood sugar, weight, muscle mass, body fat, water in the body, and then the changes between these things. We're looking at ratios and calculating hydration. And all the numbers on the spreadsheet, the last one is overall hydration. It's the most important one. Water's life. When you're dehydrated, everything begins to disintegrate. Now, you're a much younger man than I am. I'm 29. How old are you?
I'm 28.
Yeah, I just turned 29 for the 36th time last week. 65, as I said. So what happens to most people is they become more dehydrated every single day because of the way people eat. And it's not just the food. Alcohol, sodas, coffee, and tea are diuretics. They make you eliminate water from the body. Salt, pepper, onions, garlic, spices all take water from your body. You eat salt, your body will take water out of the cells to protect you from the salt. Okay, because it's actually toxic to us. Now, we need sodium and chloride, but we need them in organic form from plants. So I stopped eating salt more than 40 years ago. People think it's essential. Absolutely not. Remember, I haven't been sick a day, and I haven't been eating salt at all. We don't need it. We get all the minerals we need from eating plants. That's where all the nutrients come from. I mean, people think they're getting, I'm getting my minerals, my nutrients from eating meat. Where do you think the cow got them from? From plants. That's where they all originate from. We can eliminate the middleman and just eat the plants. But let's come back to the guy who wound up in the hospital. 4 months in the hospital, 2% kidney function. At 22, he almost died. He came back to me a year later and told me what happened. And he said to me, I want you to guide me through another fast. He said, this time I'll follow your directions. I said, okay. So I guided him through another 21-day fast. This is the second one. He did the first one with me, the second one on his own, which wound up in the hospital. Third one with me. And a couple months later, he went and had a scan, and they said, you're back to 100% kidney function. He healed his kidneys. Okay? I mean, again, we could sit here literally all day long because I've guided more than 12,000 people through this process. And I could share amazing healing stories with you, things that medicine says aren't possible. Here's an example. I had a client who rolled her car. She was texting while driving. Don't do this. Okay? In California, she rolled her car down an embankment. She broke her neck. And she's been paralyzed now. It's now been probably 6 years. She's been paralyzed from the armpits down. So she can move her neck and her head, her face. But she can't. She can move her arms, but she was considered quadriplegic because she couldn't control her hands. So she couldn't really do much with them. And then from her armpits down, completely paralyzed. She had 24-hour nursing care. And she fasted with me for 30 days. Now, by the time she was done, she could feel her spine for the first time in 4.5 years. She could have a bowel movement for the first time in 4.5 years without mechanical assistance. She needed to have assistance to eliminate anything from her body. And she could pick up a glass and drink from it for the first time. But here's the thing, medicine says, if it's been 2 years since paralysis without healing, there's 0 chance of healing. Incorrect. So it's truly amazing what our bodies can do.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, there's so much we can do to heal. I mean, you mentioned the Bates method. I think that's cool. I actually did that before. It's really effective. I feel like even if we're dealing with some type of chronic condition, right? Even if, like you mentioned, we may not be able to heal 100% of everything all the time, but I always think we can see some type of improvement. Like there's probably some improvement that is able to be made and have a higher quality of life, I feel like, no matter where we are.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. We were talking before about how people are often not so well connected to their body. I got an email probably 5 or 6 years ago from 2 young men in Denmark, brothers, and they said, Loren, at the time, my center was open. It was open until just over a year ago, and I gave a lecture every day for 29 years. And I had someone on my team that would record all my lectures, and then put out 3 YouTube videos a week. Because I would say a lot of the same things in each session. We started out just putting up. Years ago, I started out just putting up the entire 1-hour lecture every day on YouTube, and then thought, okay, or at least the best ones. Now, because we'd already put up most of them, she was looking for specific pieces and putting up 10, 15-minute videos. And anyway, I got this email, and these guys said, with our parents, we said we're your biggest fans. We watch all your videos. We love everything you say. We've never actually applied any of it. We haven't made any of the changes. We haven't fasted, but we agree with everything you say. And we're writing to you now because our father was just diagnosed with a liver tumor. Now, you might know the liver is the largest organ in the abdomen, in the torso. It starts under the right rib cage and comes all the way across the belly. It's pretty big. And by the time he was diagnosed with this tumor in his liver, it was bigger than his liver. Now imagine. So we don't actually have pain receptors in the liver. Right? There's nerves there because the liver needs to communicate with the brain. But we don't feel pain in the liver. But if you've got this thing, this enormous object inside your abdomen that shouldn't be there, it's pushing on everything. You would think he would be feeling it somewhere else, feeling the discomfort. I guess he finally did, and that's what made him go to the doctor and discover this tumor. They diagnosed the tumor, and they said to him, you've got 2 or 3 weeks to live. 2 or 3 weeks. There's nothing we can do. It's inoperable. We can't help you. We can give you painkillers. We can basically make you semi-comatose so you're not in pain. But that's all we can do. And so they wrote to me and said, will fasting help him? And I said, well, it's hard to say. I mean, healing from something like this stage 4 cancer, which means it's metastasized, it's moved through the lymphatic system to other organs, at least a couple other organs, and in this giant tumor in the liver, it's difficult sometimes to heal from that. I've helped many people with stage 4 cancer heal because, again, their bodies have this ability. And this surprises people, but cancer cells are forming, they say, in every body, your body and my body, every single day. When the body's healthy enough, the body's immune function destroys those cells before they become a problem. When the body's not healthy enough, then we wind up with developing this issue. So they said, will fasting help? And I said, well, it may be difficult to heal from this, but it will definitely help him. He'll feel better. He'll probably live longer. And he fasted with me for 6 weeks, and he actually lived for about 3 months. He did wind up dying from the cancer, but he felt much better. First of all, he wound up with 7 times more time left, or 4 times. What was it? 4 times more. Yeah, from weeks to months. So he had like 4 times more time left to be with his family, and he did this remotely. So he was at home. He was with his family every day, and his pain immediately reduced. So he felt much better, and he was able to enjoy his last weeks with his months with his family. But in the end, it was too late to heal. But it helped him, and that I can say that's true for everybody. Even if they weren't able to fully heal, as you said, they're still going to be much better off in every case.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, right? Like incorporating that of lifestyle, and we start to realize that our paradigms and ways of being in terms of health aren't really true, right? Because even if someone isn't dealing with a chronic condition, I find most people are in this low-level energy state. They're just experiencing symptoms and just think it's normal, but it's not, right? And we start to incorporate nutrition, like high-quality sleep, exercise, all these things. They work in synergy, right? And you start to have the energy to create the life that you want. That's kind of what I see in terms of wellness.
No, I'm with you completely. I mean, that's what had me attracted to your program, because it's so many people go through life in victim consciousness. And what most people don't realize is that we are capable of creating almost anything we choose to. And the starting point, I mean, if you're listening, I'm going to say to you, you have genius. You may not know where it is yet, and it may not be obvious, but you have genius in some area. You, Anthony, have created this program and probably other things in life. I've created things that nobody else on the planet was capable of creating, okay, because we're each unique. We each have a unique set of gifts and abilities, and we each have this genius. But could anyone possibly manifest everything that they're capable of when they're not functioning at their highest level? I think the answer is no. I mean, they might have created amazing things, but was it everything they were capable of if they weren't functioning at their highest level? I think the answer is absolutely not. It's not possible.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because no one can do it like you do it, right? You all have these like unique gifts and things. You gotta cultivate these things, right? You have to become the greatest version of yourself every single day, and it's very difficult to do if you're in a low-level energy state.
That's right.
And like, it's not like you can't do it, because I believe that we're very resilient as humans. But how will we make the process more graceful and take it even further than we would have otherwise?
Well, again, I mean, yes, we can point to many geniuses who've created amazing things in their specific area of expertise. But could they have done more? Could they have done a better job? I think the answer is always, I mean, we can always improve. And how much better do we function when we're fully hydrated, which isn't possible until we eliminate this giant sponge of old hard material, which only happens via fasting. Let me give you one simple, quick example of this. We talked about the young woman who eliminated the pounds and pounds and pounds of stuff. But I had a client in his 50s who fasted with me from the UK. And the reason he was fasting was because he had these intermittent migraine headaches that were so bad. Fortunately, he worked for himself, because he would need to be 2 to 4 days in a dark room with no sound, just laying down. Couldn't handle light, couldn't handle sound, couldn't do anything. The pain was so intense. And he fasted for 30 days. And on the 5th morning of refeeding, after breaking his fast, he'd already eaten 4 days. It was the 5th day he was going to eat. We had our call. And he said to me, "Last night, I had the worst migraine I've ever had. The most painful thing I've ever experienced." He said, "And then I had a bowel movement, and it immediately disappeared." This was him eliminating this old hard waste he'd been carrying around for many decades. He was 52 years old. So there's stuff that's been in your body since you were an infant. And the stuff that gets stuck, it's not the remnants of apples and oranges. It's the remnants of things that shouldn't be there, that should have never gone in your mouth in the first place. All the things we were never intended to eat.
Yeah. So what do you think is kind of holding us back from reaching our full potential? Like, do you find fasting helps release things mentally as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, there's a boating saying that says a rising tide lifts all boats. When we give, so every aspect of our being is connected. Physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, it's all connected. Only when we get the body clean, we get the physical body, we detoxify and give the body a chance to heal everything, it shifts our psychology, it shifts us emotionally. It's incredible what happens. It's amazing. And we see this all the time as well. I mean, people come to me. I mentioned the one person who came with depression and shifted dramatically. We see this over and over again. So the same thing happens mentally. In fact, here's an interesting fact. Science says that if your brain is 2% dehydrated, you lose 20% of cognitive function. Most people are walking around significantly dehydrated, much more than 2%. Now, here's the thing. The body's pretty intelligent. So the average person I see is between 15 and 16% dehydrated. But the body is so intelligent, it's not just going to give everything in the body 15 or 16% less water, because that's what it has. I think what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, let's make sure that the most important vital systems and organs have what they need. So heart, brain, liver, lungs, pancreas, thyroid, kidneys, bloodstream are going to get what they need. While the things that are not critical to your survival are not going to get as much blood as they need to. And they're not going to be 15% low. Because let's say that we needed, just make up a number. Let's say that we needed, the average person needs, the average adult male needs nearly 4 liters of water per day. About 3.7 is what science says. Some of that's coming from food and other drinks. But let's just make it a round number and say it's 4 liters the average person needs. And let's say instead they only have 3.5 liters. So does everything get that percentage? In fact, let's make the numbers even easier. Let's say that there's only 3 liters and we need 4, because that's 75%. So does everything get 75% of the water it needs? No. No, again, the most vital systems and organs get as much as they need, and then the things that are not vital get what's left over. Now, here's what that means. Okay, and how old are you?
28.
28. Okay. So this is something that is probably not on your radar yet. But if you've got listeners who are 50 or older, especially, and some even in their 40s, they may be starting to experience some of the symptoms of aging. I went to a family wedding not long ago, and there were a lot of people there in my age group, and they all had tons of wrinkles on their face. I don't, because I'm the most hydrated person we've ever measured. And that's from fasting and then living correctly. I teach everyone how to do the same thing. And we literally not only don't age, but we can reverse aging. So my older clients, I have a guy right now fasting with me who is 80 years old. And he's super dehydrated, which is typical for people his age. He started with tons of edema. And he's on day 18 or 19 today. I think today's 19. He's already released something like over 7 liters of edema from his body. This is extracellular water that's there to protect him from something. And this happens because we're dehydrated, the body's not functioning properly, the heart's not functioning properly, right? The circulatory system's not functioning properly. We can resolve this by fasting. When we do this, what happens is people wind up becoming younger again as we get them hydrated. Because most of the normal signs of aging, okay? I ran into someone last year who fasted with me about 28 years ago. I've been doing this more than 30 years. And she said, aside from your gray hair, you look exactly the same. You haven't changed at all. Okay, from nearly 30 years ago, when I was in my late 30s. And that's, people say that all the time, okay? There's no wrinkles. My joints still work perfectly. My vision is better than perfect. It's better than 20/20, right? But usually people lose their vision. Macular degeneration affects most people over a certain age. And it's deformation of the eye because the eye is a ball of jelly and the body needs the water. It's like 97% water. We have joint problems because cartilage is 97% water, and synovial fluid, which is also, it's like the oil in the joints, right, is 99% water. And what happens when the body's dehydrated, it says, well, that's not that important, right? These things, they seem important, but Have you seen Stevie Wonder's new piano?
No.
Neither has he. Right? He's blind. He's been blind since he was 9 years old. He's like 75 years old now. We don't have to see to survive. But your heart, lungs, liver, kidney, pancreas, thyroid, bloodstream need the water. They need the water for you to survive. If you dehydrate those things enough, again, 6 people I knew died from dry fasting because their kidneys shut down from lack of sufficient water. So why do people get wrinkles on their skin as they get older? And how come I don't have any? Well, the wrinkles are the result of chronic dehydration. We lose elasticity in the skin from chronic dehydration. We can replace that. We can rehydrate and regain that elasticity. We can fix joint problems. I've helped many people with arthritis. I had a client who'd been in terrible pain for, let me think now, 24 years with arthritis. And he was on pain medications every day. And he came to me, and he knew he had to stop taking the medications. You can't take medications while you're fasting. Now, the good news is you can stop taking most of them. Some you have to wean off of. And again, don't do this on your own, folks. This is something that requires guidance. Okay? I'll say this now. I've got a call in 10 minutes, so we don't have a lot of time left. But first of all, if you're listening and you want to feel and function better than ever, I guarantee you that I can help you do that if you're coachable and you're willing to do what you need to do. A couple things. You have to be able to take time off, okay, because this is about resting completely. And you have to invest in yourself. Okay, I'm expensive because I offer a guarantee, and if you're coachable, you're going to see the best results. I promise you. But he understood he was going to have to stop taking the drugs. He did. On about the 7th day, he came to me with tears in his eyes and said, I've never experienced this much pain before. I'm not sure if I can do this. Well, I got him through. I talked him through. I held his hand emotionally, so to speak, for a while. And he came back to me about 10 days later, again with tears in his eyes. And he said, this is the first day in 24 years I've had no pain. And the last I talked to him, about 5 years ago, this happened 7 years ago, and he was still pain-free as of a couple of years ago. Okay, it's amazing what our bodies can do. Now, if it's okay with you, we didn't talk about this, but I have a gift I'd like to give anyone that's interested. It's a beautiful ebook called Ancient Secrets of Healing, and all they need to do is message me, email me at Loren, Loren, at fasttorise.com, and just tell me you're interested in the ebook, and I'll get that off to you. In fact, you know what? Let's make that support at fasttorise.com, because then my assistant can do that. My partner.
Wow, thanks so much, man.
Does that.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. There's no cost. Just tell us you'd like the ebook, and we'll be happy to get that to you. And it'll give you much more information. Okay? And if you already know you want to do this, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to. We can set up a quick call. Again, make sure 2 things. You have to be able to take time off. Now, and you have to be able to invest in yourself. And for people that maybe can't see their way to spend, because almost everyone who works with me does 21 days or more. So it's a 4-week process with refeeding. If you can't see your way clear to fasting 21 days, that just seems mind-blowing to you. We have a new program called the Fasting Reset. And it's a 4-week educational program online with 7 days of fasting. And you can definitely do that. Okay, and that's less expensive too. So if you're interested in that, you can let me know. But again, there's so many things. I mean, so many things most people think, well, this it's my genetics. Hardly. Genetics probably play about a 2% role. And what they say, and you've probably heard this before, is genetics load the gun, lifestyle choices pull the trigger. It's the choices we make. It's what we do. Right? Everybody else in my family has arthritis. I don't, because I make different choices than they do. I've got my body clean, and I keep it that way. Okay, so I can teach anyone to do this if they're willing to.
Yeah, it's incredible, just the healing potential, right?
Absolutely, it's amazing what happens. Yeah.
All right, Loren, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you today for coming on the show, sharing your story with us.
Hey,
all your
my
insights
pleasure.
and knowledge about fasting, right? Because it's such an incredible tool that we can utilize for a wide variety of healing. Even if we're not dealing with a condition, we can stay healthy and feel optimized in that process.
Absolutely.
And a lot of stories here and just inspiration if we're dealing with something. So Again, thank you so much, and it's been an honor.
Hey, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, so if people would like to get connected with you and your work, is there another place we can go?
Well, you can find me on all the social medias. I'm on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. LinkedIn, though, not very active. But again, if you're interested in seeing more information from me, just reach out to support@fasttorise.com. Tell us you want the ebook, and we'll get that right to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.